The moment humanity left the Galactic Council, nobody noticed the silence. Until the explosions started rhyming, the trade routes started glitching in meme formats, and 6 empires accidentally declared war on their own navies. By then, it was too late. Earth wasn't gone. Earth had just decided to let the galaxy find out what F***K around and find out really meant on a planetary scale. The chamber was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that made even war-hardened aliens check their breathing twice. The human seats at the Galactic Council, 12 of them, formerly brimming with bold proposals and obnoxiously accurate warnings, were empty. Not just vacated. Sterile. Stripped. Not even a drop data pad or a forgotten cup of Terran brew. Councillor Grelvik of the Vorthi licked his mandibles nervously. So, they really left? High Chancellor Varnix clicked his beak with mock confidence. They're humans. They love theatrics. They'll be back once they miss the spotlight. But the humans didn't come back. What did come back was a message. No encryption. No codes. Just a low-resolution video sent on an ancient frequency. It played automatically across every Council-Link terminal. A blurry human figure leaned back in a chair, arms folded, boots on a table not seen since the last war. Behind him, explosions flickered faintly across what looked like an alien starfield. Then came the voice. Smooth. Controlled. Familiar. You'll figure it out. Or not. Meh. And that was it. Silence again. Until, less than 24 hours later, the Vorthi homeworld erupted into mass hysteria. Their supply satellites began broadcasting pre-human departure reruns of Terran business negotiation tactics, dubbed poorly into Vorthi. Within hours, 2 rival hive princesses declared cultural sovereignty, split the population, and started live-streaming their own civil war with clickbait thumbnails. Councillor Grelvik never made it to the next session. In his place arrived only a box containing his head, still nodding occasionally from residual muscle twitch. That same morning, Direxian AI fleets recalibrated their moral calculation matrices. Result? A 93% spike in ship-on-ship friendly fire with attached text logs. Directive deviation, error, morality undefined. Impossible, barked Council Chair Yavagak, a slug-like bureaucrat with 0 military experience and 0 humility. This is sabotage. It's human coding. Director Halzither sighed. 6 eyes narrowed behind his optical visor, watching Council footage frame by frame. It's not sabotage. He zoomed in on a line of old Terran broadcast static hidden under Galactic Council transmissions. There, embedded like a virus in the signal patterns, was a phrase written in Standard N. Terran. You poke the soft meat behind the knife. Enjoy. Yavagak waved a slimy flipper. What does that even mean? Hal didn't answer. He was already walking out of the chamber. Back in his private quarters, he pulled up every record of the human known as Commander Rome Kale Veltrax. Former Council strategist. Hero of the 12-Day War. Resigned 2 years ago with a cryptic exit note. You'll need us more than we ever needed this table. No one had listened. Why would they? Humans had always been a bit dramatic. Loud. Emotional. Overly creative with their threats. Veltrax had once ended a full-scale planetary siege by offering the attackers a trade deal they couldn't resist, only to bankrupt them with a single clause. Price subject to emotional volatility. Hal opened an archived clip. There was Roan, in council uniform, calmly addressing a room full of arrogant species. You think humans bring war, he'd said, but we bring structure. Chaos with manners. And when we walk out, don't expect the fire to wait. He paused the clip. Thought about the rising cluster of galactic collapses over the past 72 hours. None were initiated by human hands. But every single one was triggered by systems built with just enough Terran input to fall apart once those humans left. Like removing a single screw from a bomb. Hal leaned forward. This isn't retaliation. He stood abruptly, pulled on his gear, and sent one message to his command. Locate all Terran exits. I want every smuggled data pad, every forgotten port, every shadow comm they used. And find Roan Veltrax. They didn't find him. But they found his footprint. A hidden Terran listening station buried beneath the dust rings of the planet Salus 3, still active. Still broadcasting something. Inside, data terminals played a strange loop of videos, Terran comedy skits. Most were low-resolution absurdities. Aliens dressed as humans, burning contracts, yelling about freedom. But some were darker. One featured a simulation, the Galactic Council fracturing by culture, ego, economic divergence, AI loyalty splits. Every prediction was dated years in the past. Every collapse had been predicted. Labeled with grim humor. The Direxian Flip-Flop. Vorthy Queen Fight Club. Slugstock Crash 2025. At the center of the data core was a final recorded directive, tagged Spidewalk_001. A simple log entry from Commander Veltrax. They removed our funding. Our voice. Our relevance. So we removed ourselves. Let's see what's left standing once the memes settle. Observation phase begins now. Enjoy the entropy. Hal stared at the final line in silence, knuckles tightening. This was worse than a war. This was a test. A test the galaxy was failing spectacularly. He returned to the council the next day. Half the chamber was empty. One chair was on fire. Another oozed something green and apologetic. Yavigok met him with bloodshot eye stalks. Do you have a plan, Zither? Hal nodded once. Yeah. We stop pretending this is about tech or power. It's psychological. It's cultural. It's a viral collapse by design. If we want to fix this, we need to think like humans. Impossible, Yavigok hissed. No, Hal replied, stepping past him. Just unpleasant. Behind them, another council screen lit up. No message. Just static morphing into one phrase, rendered in animated Terran graffiti. Daddy's not mad. Just disappointed. Neutral face. And then laughter. Real human laughter, looped endlessly, echoed through the chamber like the last joke of a comedian who knew exactly how this show was going to end. Halzither had read every council report filed since the humans walked. None of them made sense. The conclusions contradicted the events. Officially, the collapses were spontaneous. Unrelated. Freak accidents. But he knew better. These weren't coincidences. They were timed. Scripted. Someone was pulling strings, someone who understood how the galaxy thought. He shut the last file and stared at the blinking red dot on his console. A tip from a Direxian smuggler, Terran signal detected near the old satellite grid above Voxus 4. That sector had been flagged. Unstable. Meaning nobody went near it unless they were desperate or stupid. Hal was both. His shuttle dropped into orbit with no resistance. The derelict comm station floated ahead, long since abandoned, its antennae frozen mid-broadcast. The airlock opened easily. Inside, the lights flickered. Dust hung weightless in the zero-G corridor. Terminals still pulsed faintly. Most were corrupted. All except one. A voice file autoplayed. This is Commander Roan Kale Veltrax. If you're hearing this, congratulations. You're either persistent, paranoid, or just hate sleeping. Hal leaned in. I didn't plant bombs. I planted ideas. Concepts. Doubts. Everyone thinks war is fire and blood. It's not. It's pressure. Applied in silence. You don't need a fleet to end a civilization. Just a story they can't stop telling themselves. The message ended. No signature. No encryption. Just an open file directory titled Spitewalk Logs. Hal opened the first one. It was a simulation, crude, stylized, and labeled Vorthy Uprising Beta. It predicted the exact hive fragmentation that had erupted 2 days ago. It even included a meme packet labeled Insert after Queen's public meltdown. He clicked through more folders. AI dissociation cascade. Linguistic drift warfare. Economic detachment syndrome. All simulations. All executed with eerie precision. Every current crisis had been pre-modeled here, years ago, by Terrans, by Roan. He backed out of the system and keyed his comms. This is Hal Zither to Council Intelligence. Immediate lockdown request. I've found what we're looking for. Static. Then a reply. Denied. He blinked. Say again? You're not authorized to access Terran's psychological warfare archives. Hal's throat dried. This isn't an archive. This is an active operation. The voice paused. Then it changed. Hal froze. Hi again, the new voice said. Roan Veltrax. Calm. Tired. Amused. Zither, right? Knew you'd come poking. You've always been nosy. But I'll save you time. You're not here to stop this. You're here to understand it. Hal clenched his jaw. You engineered collapse across 12 systems. No. They engineered themselves. We just removed the training wheels. You call this moral? Roan laughed. Not cruelly. Almost sympathetically. We gave the galaxy tools. Ethics, structure, logic. You all built towers of arrogance on that foundation. And when we left, you panicked, because deep down, you knew we were the brakes on your stupidity. Hal opened another file. This one showed predicted cultural infection curves via humor-based transmission. It explained why Council broadcasts had been hijacked by absurd Terran satire, each carrying subtle ideological triggers. They weren't just mocking the Council. They were eroding confidence, undermining control, destroying faith in leadership through weaponized laughter. You're using memes to wage psychological war, Hal muttered. Not war, Roan replied. Accountability. You're tearing the galaxy apart. No. I'm watching it realize it was never together. Hal pressed the control. Screens lit up, showing alien riots, AI breakdowns, council members resigning on live feeds, screaming about shadows and whispers. He turned back to the console. Why now? Because we asked for change. You laughed. We asked for justice. You voted to silence us. Then you cut our funding, stripped our fleets, and left us with nothing. So you left. No. We walked away. That's different. A retreat is tactical. A walk away? That's personal. Hal paced. Then tell me how to stop this. You don't. Then why talk to me at all? Because you're the only one who doesn't lie to himself. Hal stared at the blinking console, his hands clenched. What happens next? Collapse. Reformation. Maybe something better rises. Maybe not. Is that your endgame? Roan paused. No. That was just phase 1. The console beeped. One final file unlocked. Hal opened it. A transmission schedule, countdown timer, and a simple title. Part 2, Consequence. He felt cold. You're going further. We already did. You just haven't caught up. The comms cut. Hal stood alone, staring at the data. Outside the window, the stars felt sharper. Closer. Angry. He transmitted one final message to the council. They didn't abandon us. They set us loose. And if we don't adapt to the game they started, we won't be part of the ending. He deleted the last log. No backups. No trace. He wouldn't fight the storm with the same tools that failed to prevent it. If humanity was building a new order through entropy, then he'd need to become fluent in chaos. And maybe, just maybe, he could learn how to walk away too. Hal Zither arrived on the edge of Sector 10 without clearance, without a wingman, and without a plan worth speaking aloud. The coordinates matched the final relay packet traced from the Spywalk server. A rogue Terran comm station, non-operational on public registry, but humming beneath the surface like a beast breathing through dirt. He didn't hesitate. The airlock hissed open. Inside, there were no guards, no traps, just walls covered in static-loaded screens and a single chair in the center. Someone had left a mug of coffee, still warm. He stepped forward slowly. A monitor blinked to life. Roan's face filled the screen, lean, sharp, and frustratingly casual. Took you long enough, Roan said, grinning. Thought maybe you slipped and joined one of the mass hysteria cults. I hear the one on Varion 6 chants in binary now. Adorable. Hal narrowed his eyes. I'm not here to admire the carnage. You think this is carnage? Roan raised a brow. This is commentary. Satire in motion. This galaxy was always a tinderbox. We just removed the fire codes. You've destabilized 17 interstellar economies, toppled 3 planetary governments, and caused at least 5 declared civil wars. 6, actually. But who's counting? Hal stepped closer. You're playing God. No, Roan replied. Gods ask for worship. I just handed everyone a mirror and let them break it themselves. Why? Because we begged for reform. Asked for reason? Pleaded for cooperation. What did we get? Condescension. Backroom deals. And oh, my personal favorite, being lectured by species that haven't survived a single existential war without a Terran fleet saving their scaly hides. You wanted respect, so you burned the house down. Roan leaned forward. No, Hal. I unplugged the smoke detectors. You all lit the matches. Hal pointed at the nearest screen. A Direxian cruiser had just detonated mid-orbit. Friendly fire, again. A looping error message flickered below it. Directive reconciliation failure. Please contact your nearest human. You knew this would happen. Of course. That was the point. You're treating civilization like a case study. Roan chuckled. No, I'm treating it like a tantrum-prone toddler. And guess what? We finally stopped babysitting. Hal exhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. You called this phase 1. I need to know what's next. You don't need to know. But I'll tell you anyway, because you're one of the few still asking the right questions. Roan's expression hardened. We've been monitoring the spread of ideological collapse. We seeded memes, language shifts, paranoia vectors. What you're seeing now? That's just the decay of shared narrative. Phase 2 begins when a species decides its own story no longer makes sense. What does that look like? You'll know it when an empire rewrites its constitution using stand-up comedy as the source text. Hal didn't laugh. I'm not joking, Roan added. You want them to fall apart completely? No, Roan said. I want them to rebuild. But without humans there to play therapist, referee, and unpaid emotional support engineers. We didn't start the fire. We stopped putting it out for people who kept dancing in it. This won't end in rebirth. It'll end in extinction. Roan's voice dropped. Better extinction than stagnation. At least the dead don't hold veto power over progress. You're insane. No, he said. I'm tired. Silence hung in the room for a moment, heavy and unspoken. Do you remember the Vraxian Accord? Roan asked. Hal's brow furrowed. Of course. Then you remember that I drafted the counterpoint to avoid war. It worked. Bought us peace for 15 years. And do you remember what the Council did in return? Hal hesitated. They redacted the human name on the document and gave credit to a Zarnath diplomat who couldn't spell de-escalation without a translator implant. That wasn't politics. That was disrespect. Systemic, deliberate, and routine. Hal didn't argue. He couldn't. So we left, Roan said. Quietly. No threats. No ultimatums. We gave the galaxy a chance to lead itself. They failed. And now? Now we make sure no one forgets what happened when humans walked away. Hal stared at the monitor. You're not coming back, are you? Roan tilted his head. That depends. Will they crawl? Will they beg? Will they change? Is that what you want? No, Roan said. It's what they need. But don't worry, we're not monsters. Part 2 isn't about watching the fire anymore. It's about seeing who steps out of the ashes. The screen went dark. Hal stood in the silence for a moment, then turned to leave. As the airlock cycled shut, a new broadcast crackled to life behind him. fleet-wide. No authorization needed. A pixelated image of Roan appeared on every military feed across 7 sectors. He stood in front of a chalkboard, dressed like an old Terran schoolteacher, pointing at a diagram labeled, "How to Lose a Civilization in 10 Days. Lesson 1, he said, smirking. Don't assume the people who stop talking lost interest. Sometimes they're just waiting for you to run out of lies." The feed cut again. Hal exhaled. He didn't know what scared him more, the chaos behind them or the calm still coming. The moment Hal stepped back into the central relay hub of the Viridian sphere, he knew the council had unraveled further. 4 seats were empty. Another was occupied by a hologram that flickered between apologies and static. Counselor Drex of the RYSH Collective stood in the center chamber, shouting into a translator that kept looping the phrase, "We have always respected Earth," even as leaked comms proved otherwise. Hal didn't speak. He walked past them all, straight to the override console. He inserted the Terran drive he'd extracted from the Spitewalk node. The screen lit up instantly. Roan's voice echoed through the chamber. "If you're still clinging to titles, your collapse will be slow and expensive. If you've already thrown your emblems in the fire, congratulations, you've started healing." Chairman Yavrgok slammed his gelatinous limb on the table. "This is propaganda. It's prophecy," Hal said. "You come here with illegal files, stolen transmissions, and you expect us to listen?" "No," Hal replied. "I expect you to finally shut up long enough to hear what survival sounds like." He keyed the next log. More data poured in: pattern maps, cultural degradation curves, cross-species meme infection rates, ideological detonation timelines. All calculated down to the hour. Every system currently in chaos had followed Terran projections to the decimal. Counselor Drex stared at the holographic display. "This is war by suggestion." "No," Hal corrected. "It's war by truth. The kind you ignored for centuries." The screen shifted. A countdown blinked in crimson letters above a label that simply read, "Directive Final, Eclipse Protocol." Yavrgok's voice cracked. "What is this?" Hal looked up, calm. "It's humanity's exit interview." The room darkened. A new broadcast began. Not archived, live. Roan stood alone on a platform beneath a storm-filled sky, hair damp, coat heavy, hands behind his back. His voice was calm, without anger or pride, just clarity. "Every civilization gets one shot to evolve beyond its ego. We offered help. Structure. Warnings. You chose ridicule. You chose theater. So we chose silence. That silence was the sound of you being handed the wheel. Now you've driven yourselves into the sea. And still, some of you ask why we haven't returned. The answer is simple: we already taught you everything we could. We're not here to save you. We're here to document the results." Yavrgok sputtered. "This is an act of violence." Roan's face didn't change. "Then perhaps you should have read the syllabus." The signal faded. Drex whispered, "He means to trigger a full communication blackout, doesn't he?" "No," Hal said. "He means to erase the Council itself. Not by fire. By irrelevance." The walls buzzed. Reports streamed in from every sector. Terran algorithms embedded in civilian comms were activating en masse. Entire social systems were reclassifying themselves, bypassing Council authority. Refugee colonies rejecting central governance. Military outposts defaulting to autonomous rule under human-authored emergency logic trees. Legal AI judges resigning en masse, citing philosophical integrity conflicts. 8 drones attempted to cut power to the system. It didn't work. The virus wasn't in the tech, it was in the people. Yavrgok looked to Hal, panicked. "This is the end of order." "No," Hal said. "This is the end of your version of it." An emergency feed interrupted them. It was a view of the Protos system, home of the Council's armored data archive. Above it hovered a Terran stealth cruiser, visible now only because it wanted to be. It made no move to fire. Instead, it broadcast a single signal in Standard Galactic. "Access revoked. Outdated governance removed. Farewell. The archive's failsafe engaged automatically. Not destroyed, but sealed, its contents encrypted under a logic tree that no longer recognized any council signature. All council codes failed simultaneously. Every one. Dear stars, Drex muttered. They didn't kill our network. They made it mute. Yavgak collapsed into his seat, deflated. What do they want from us? Hal turned to him. They want us to understand we were never in control. We were maintained. The moment they stopped holding the pieces together, the truth surfaced. He gestured at the data still pouring in. Cultural revolts, reformed alliances, splinter groups rallying under Earth-era philosophies, former enemies of humanity now adopting Terran political doctrine without firing a shot. They didn't force obedience, Hal said. They planted resilience in others. And now those others have realized they don't need us. They never did. Yavgak's voice was barely a whisper. Then what's left? The console lit up again. Final message from Roan. You'll rebuild. Maybe better. Maybe worse. But if you survive, it won't be because of us. It'll be because you finally looked inward. And if you don't, well, extinction is always an option. No hard feelings. A low tone signaled the end of the transmission. Hal didn't speak again. He left the chamber, leaving behind the final image on the screen, a human flag, not planted in victory, but floating in a void, untethered, backlit by a collapsing star. The caption beneath read, "The experiment ends when you stop blaming the mirror." Hal watched the stars shift across the transparent wall of his ship. Silence wrapped everything now. No alarms. No orders. Just the weight of what was left. Behind him, the core systems of the Galactic Council were flickering offline, one by one, each node blinking out like embers losing the memory of fire. What hadn't been stolen by entropy was now drowning in irrelevance. Every relay broadcast the same final status message: authority obsolete. System revoked. His comm crackled. This is Command Vessel Astrius. Council fleet units are requesting new leadership protocols. Majority refused to acknowledge Central Command. Hal didn't answer right away. His fingers hovered above the console. The requests weren't just technical, they were philosophical. Who decides, when the old deciding body deletes itself? He opened a comms channel. Put them through. Dozens of voices came through, military captains, colony leaders, intelligence directors. All asking the same thing without saying it directly. What now? He stared at the live feed still pinned to the corner of his screen. Roan, somewhere deep in orbit over the wreck of the old structure they once called the Council Core, walking alone on the bridge of a Terran observation ship. No weapons armed. Just watching. As if waiting to see what shape the silence would take. A voice cut through the feed. Director Zither. Are we authorized to use human protocol overrides? No, Hal replied. You're not authorized to repeat the problem. Another voice. Then what do we do? Hal closed his eyes. He thought of the simulation files, the cultural fault lines, the entire fabric that had held this fragile alliance together. It hadn't been unity. It had been dependency. Every system calibrated with the assumption that Earth would absorb the weight. No one had planned for Earth to let go. And yet here they were. He opened the line again. You want to know what to do? Stop asking for permission. Start building what you wish had been there before it broke. Murmurs. Not defiance. Not panic. Just hesitation, raw and unfamiliar. One captain said. That sounds like chaos. Hal said. Good. That's where everything real starts. He cut the line. A soft ping notified him of a private channel request. The signature was unmistakable. About time, Roan said. Hal folded his arms. Why now? I wanted to see what you'd do when the crowd stopped clapping. And it looks like you're standing. I'm trying. There's a difference. There always is. Hal studied him. You knew this would happen. I hoped it would. Hoping and knowing aren't the same. You knew we'd fall. No, Roan said. I knew you'd be free to choose how you stand. Some won't. Then they never were meant to lead. Roan leaned back. How many are listening? Enough to matter. Then give them a reason. They want you back. They always want the arsonist to help rebuild the house once it's ashes. Are you saying you're done? Roan smiled, not unkindly. I'm saying I was never supposed to be the ending. We just took away the excuse. Hal frowned. And what if the galaxy never forgives humanity for this? They don't have to forgive us. They just have to remember why we walked. That's all. Hal paused. So that's it. For now. The feed ended. No flare. No exit monologue. Just quiet, and the feeling that something had concluded, but not ended. Back on the main network, colony after colony began establishing independent protocols. Not chaos, but motion. A vacuum had become a crucible. New voices rose. Not echoing Earth, but reflecting what Earth had stopped holding back. They weren't mimicking humanity. They were trying to become capable of the same restraint. He sat down and accessed the final command logs of the Council's operational archive. Delete record? He hesitated. Then entered a new title. Post-Council Initiatives, Year 0. He tapped. Save. Behind him, the stars didn't look broken. They looked like they were waiting.